Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And today I'm going to be talking about storing your homemade vinegars and even your wines, and the best way to do that to get a much longer shelf life and to keep the quality in there. So though I've done a video like this several years ago, I really needed to update it because there are some things I do a little bit different now than I did even back then. So specifically talking about vinegar, when I first started storing my vinegar in glass jars, which I do highly recommend glass, no matter what it is, it should at least be glass. It's going to be far better than storing it in plastic. And one of the reasons why is that the plastic, not only can the vinegar degrade a little bit and cause that plastic to get into the vinegar, the big thing is that plastic is still somewhat porous and can allow air to get in, and that oxygen, any oxygen that gets into your vinegar can cause it to then clean up after itself until you end up with something that's just nasty water. But proper storage of your vinegar and of your wines can help it to last for several years. I don't know how many years for certain. I would assume indefinitely, but since I typically use our vinegars up within 1 to 2 years, I only have that to go by. And since storing it the way I store it now, I haven't had any vinegars go bad. So the reason I say this is because I have had some go bad because I only had been putting, well, I started off first using canning lids and bands. That would get a really good seal and prevent oxygen from getting into the vinegar. However, what happens with the metal lids and bands is the vinegar causes them to rust, and then the band sticks to the jar, and yeah, it's a real pain. So I stopped using that and switched to just plain plastic lids. This is before they started coming out with these or the fancy colors that they have now. Just the regular white plastic lids with no seal on the inside, because I'm not even sure if they made them back then. And what I found is that some of my vinegars were, even though they were fine when I put them back there, the ones that sat the longest ended up just no longer being vinegar. They were weak, or they just were nasty, moldy water. It was disgusting. So the process of vinegar making, you start off with either just juice or water with sugar or honey and some kind of herb or fruit scraps in there. And then the sugar gets converted into alcohol. The same step that's required for making wine. That's the first step. But with vinegar, it goes a step further. While your wine will get stronger and more alcoholic without oxygen exposure, your vinegar will then, with the oxygen exposure, because you put a cloth over it, that will then turn the alcohol into acetic acid, and that's where you get your vinegar. However, when you're talking a raw vinegar, something that has not been distilled, if it continues to be exposed to oxygen, so it's not stored in an airtight container, it will then basically, what someone referred to it as, is clean up after itself, and it just eats up all the vinegar, all the acetic acid is gone. That's why you end up with just this gross water that will then mold, because there's nothing left in there to preserve it. No alcohol, no vinegar. But using a ball leak-proof lid, I say that, I use the quotes because it's not entirely leak-proof on its own. But when you combine it with a silicone lid liner like this, you can get these on either Amazon or Azure Standard. And it's a little trickier with the leak-proof ones. You really got to press it in underneath that edge, or otherwise it's almost impossible to get it on. But this makes a huge difference. You can use just the standard white or colored lids as long as you have that silicone cover. I recommend something that covers the whole underside of the lid, such as with this rosemary extract. I have this green lid, but I have one of these regular mouth silicone liners in there to get a nice tight seal, because I'm making that with homemade wine. I'd rather it didn't turn to vinegar. So I prefer it not to get any oxygen. So it's best if it covers the whole inside. Even if you just have the ring or on around the edges here, that's still better. That will still work pretty good. But one that covers the whole inside, because again, some of these plastics can be a little bit porous and still let oxygen in, then that's going to make a huge difference. So I've been really happy with these. Well, that's how I mostly like to store my vinegar, is in half-gallon jars like this. You can use smaller jars. You can use jars that come with their own lid, like maybe from a recycled green olive jar, pickle jar, something, as long as it's got a good seal on the inside. Most of them have lug lids, and most of them have some kind of really good seal on the inside. They all should, actually. So you can use those too. If you don't want to use your half-gallon jars, or you don't have half-gallon jars, just recycle some good jars to store it in. You can also use bottles like this. This is the one I keep in the kitchen because it's so much easier to just, you know, when I need to use it for anything, just to pour it right from here. Now, I only use the Bormioli, I think is the brand name. It's the Italian brand swing top bottles. They are the same ones that make the Fido jars, where they make the bigger jar like this, but with the, you know, the bale wire type lid on it. I've never had problems with like mead, bubbly mead being stored in it, having it break my jars. I've had people say they've stored their kombucha, you know, when you get that kombucha to where it's the bubbly point and you store it like that, so it's real fizzy, it can build up pressure in there, and if you're getting cheap Chinese made bottles, it can explode them. Same can happen with your vinegar. If there's still any sugar left, it can still keep fermenting and then cause pressure to build up and then explode your bottles if you're just getting the cheap ones. This is why I recommend, if you want to go this route, getting the Italian ones. Or if you don't want to buy anything, one of my favorite things for storing my wines in, that when I choose to bottle them up, are just recycled avocado oil, almond oil bottles that I get from Chosen Foods, or any such bottles, as long as, again, the lid has a nice, like a silicone or some kind of good seal on the inside of it that's going to prevent oxygen exposure. These work really well for that. So I like to store the wine in these because not only do they look nice, but they stack nicely next to each other because they're square shaped, so they take up less room, and they're dark. So, but this is still also a great option for storing your vinegar. So if you buy anything in bottles like this, or really any kind of bottle or jar that's going to have a good seal, those will work great for wines and for vinegars. A lot of people wonder, well, how long does raw vinegar last on the shelf? As long as it's stored properly, it should last. I would still say indefinitely, even though I don't have the experience to prove that, because I typically use it up within sometimes a few months to 2 years, depending on which one it is. And yeah, so never, you know, with a good seal, never had any issues. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this video. You found it helpful. Any thoughts, ideas you'd like to share, please put them in comments down below. And if you'd like to learn how to make vinegar and how you can make it out of just about anything, I will put that video in the description box down below. I'll have it linked in there so you can click on that. It's an easy process, and I love how you can make it out of anything that you've got on hand. And thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.